High Admiral Kilara of the Valdorian Empire stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dominance, her flagship's holographic displays showing Earth in stunning detail. Her iridescent scales shifted colors as she studied the primitive civilization before her. The humans still used fossil fuels. Their spacecraft were painfully basic, and their cities showed no signs of unified planetary governance. It should have been a routine conquest. Launch the standard greeting protocols, she commanded, her voice carrying the characteristic musical tones of her species. Let's see how quickly they submit. The message was simple, as it had been for the 1,000 worlds before Earth. Submit to Valdorian rule or face extinction. The Empire's success rate was perfect. No species had ever successfully resisted once they witnessed the technological gulf between themselves and the Valdorians. The response came 73 seconds later, not in words, but in action. Kilara watched in disbelief as thousands of orbital satellites simultaneously changed their trajectories. Ground-based telescopes swiveled away from their previous targets. Military installations worldwide went dark. It wasn't the chaos of panic she expected. It was coordinated, practiced, deliberate. High Admiral, her second in command, Varen, called out, "We're detecting unusual energy signatures from their lunar base. They appear to be powering down." Kilara's scales shifted to a deep purple of confusion. In 3 centuries of conquest, she had never seen this reaction. Species either attacked immediately or began immediate negotiations. This calculated response suggested something else entirely. "Send the intimidation fleet," she ordered. "Standard formation, full shield display." A dozen warships emerged from hyperspace, their energy shields creating a spectacular light show designed to demonstrate Valdorian superiority. The humans responded by launching what appeared to be debris into orbit. Thousands of small objects, most no larger than a human hand, began spreading throughout the orbital planes. The Valdorian tactical AI dismissed them as space junk, a primitive species' last desperate attempt at creating a barrier. That's when the first Valdorian ship lost communications. High Admiral, Varen's scales had shifted to alarm red. The relentless. It's gone dark. No response to any signals. Before Kilara could process this information, 2 more ships went silent. The debris field, no, the weapon field, was expanding, each piece carrying what their sensors now recognized as sophisticated electromagnetic pulse devices, primitive by Valdorian standards, but deployed with devastating precision. "Impossible," Kilara whispered. "Their technology level. They shouldn't be capable of this level of coordination." A transmission cut through their confusion, broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Valdorian language. "You assumed our technological development would mirror yours. You assumed our space-based capabilities would reflect our total military capacity. You assumed wrong." The voice belonged to General Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, though Kilara didn't know this yet. What she did know was that somehow, this pre-FTL civilization had just disabled a quarter of her invasion fleet with technology that should have been centuries beneath them. "You have 20 minutes to retreat," Chen's voice continued. "After that, we demonstrate why humanity's greatest weapon has never been our technology, but our capacity to weaponize absolutely anything we can reach, including your own arrogance." Kilara's scales shifted through colors so rapidly her bridge crew had to look away. The humans hadn't just prepared for first contact, they had prepared for war. Every satellite, every piece of space debris, every seemingly primitive radar station was part of a coordinated defense system that had remained deliberately hidden. As she watched more of her ships go dark, their sophisticated systems overwhelmed by the elegant simplicity of the human attack, Kilara realized her empire had made a fundamental mistake. They had judged humanity's capability by their apparent level of technological advancement, never considering that this species might have deliberately maintained a deceptive technological facade while preparing for exactly this scenario. The humans hadn't developed like other species, racing to achieve the highest level of technology possible. Instead, they had focused on mastering each level of technology so completely that they could use it in ways the Valdorians had never imagined possible. And this, Kilara realized with growing dread, was only their first move. All ships, defensive positions, she ordered, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew it was too late. The humans had shown their first card, and it had already cost her 4 ships. What other surprises had this deceptively primitive species prepared? The answer came in the form of hundreds of nuclear missiles launched from Earth's surface, not aimed at the Valdorian ships, but rather at precise points in space that would force the fleet into predictable evasive maneuvers. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Valdorian ships with these weapons. They were hurting them. High Admiral, Varen's voice was barely a whisper now. We're detecting energy buildups from their lunar base. It appears they weren't powering down earlier. They were diverting power. Kilara realized, in that moment, that the Valdorian Empire hadn't discovered Earth. Earth had been waiting for them. General Sarah Chen stood in the underground command center of Luna Base Alpha, watching holographic displays track the Valdorian fleet's movements. Around her, military personnel from 24 nations worked in perfect synchronization, implementing defense protocols that humanity had refined over decades of preparation. Phase 1 successful, her tactical officer reported. The Valdorians are responding exactly as the behavioral models predicted. Their fleet formations are breaking up exactly as we anticipated. Chen nodded, her expression remaining neutral despite the small victory. The Valdorians' greatest weakness had proven to be their absolute confidence in their technological superiority. They hadn't even considered that Earth's apparent technological limitations might be a carefully crafted deception. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Let's show them why humanity never puts all its eggs in one basket. Across Earth's surface, hidden facilities sprang to life. What the Valdorians had dismissed as primitive nuclear missile silos were revealed to be something far more sophisticated. Each contained a quantum entanglement device, technology that humanity had discovered decades ago but kept hidden, developing it in secret while maintaining the appearance of a fossil fuel-dependent civilization. In orbit, thousands of seemingly defunct satellites suddenly activated, revealing themselves as nodes in a vast defense network. The Valdorians had assumed Earth's satellite network was primarily for communication and observation. They hadn't realized that every satellite launched in the past 30 years had been designed with multiple purposes, including defense. High Admiral Kilara watched in growing horror as her fleet's supposedly impenetrable quantum shields began to flicker and fail. The humans weren't attacking the shields directly. They were using their own quantum entanglement network to create localized disruptions in spacetime, making it impossible for the shields to maintain coherence. Impossible, she whispered, her scales now a sickly shade of gray. Their energy readings, their technology level, it was all falsified. Not falsified, came General Chen's voice over the command channel. Camouflage. Did you really think a species that spent its entire history fighting itself wouldn't prepare for external threats? We've been ready for something like this since we first looked up at the stars and realized we might not be alone. The Valdorian fleet attempted to regroup, but found their standard tactics useless against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Their attempts at electronic warfare were met with systems so primitive they couldn't be hacked, running alongside quantum computers so advanced they couldn't be countered. Their energy weapons found targets protected by layered defenses combining both ancient and ultra-modern technologies. Launch the autonomous strike craft, Kilara commanded, her voice tight with frustration. The Valdorian fleet released thousands of AI-controlled fighters, their neural networks supposedly too sophisticated for human defense systems to counter. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Activate the Turing protocol. Across the solar system, dormant computer viruses awakened, simple programs written in ancient coding languages that the Valdorians' advanced AI had never encountered. While their neural networks were busy analyzing these apparent cyber attacks, the real threat slipped through. quantum algorithms that had been specifically designed to exploit the fundamental limitations of artificial intelligence. The autonomous fighters began to fall into erratic patterns, their sophisticated AI cores trapped in logical loops by human programs that deliberately embraced illogical, human-like thinking patterns. It was like trying to play chess against an opponent who suddenly started using the pieces to tell stories instead of following the rules. "You see, Admiral," Chen transmitted, "while you were perfecting your technology, we were perfecting our ability to adapt. Every piece of technology we developed was created with one question in mind. How could this be used if we encountered a superior force? Every system was designed to be both more and less than it appeared." The Valdorian fleet's formation had completely broken down now, their ships scattered across space as they tried to cope with attacks coming from directions and technologies they hadn't believed possible. Their tactical AIs, programmed for warfare between technological equals, struggled to adapt to human strategies that deliberately mixed primitive and advanced approaches in unpredictable ways. "This is your final warning," Chen announced. "You can retreat now, return to your empire, and explain how a primitive species managed to counter your best technology. Or you can stay, and we'll demonstrate why humanity's greatest weapon has always been our creativity in finding new ways to solve problems." In her command center, Chen watched as the Valdorian fleet struggled to maintain cohesion. Their sophisticated sensors were being overwhelmed by simple electromagnetic interference, their quantum communications disrupted by technology they had dismissed as obsolete, their combat doctrine falling apart in the face of strategies they had never imagined possible. "You know what makes humans different, Admiral?" Chen asked, though she didn't wait for a response. "We never stopped using any technology we developed. While you were racing to achieve the highest level of advancement, we were learning how to combine everything we knew in ways that had never been tried before. Your ships might be able to handle any advanced weapon we could throw at them, but how do they deal with a cyber attack written in COBOL or a kinetic strike using simple Newtonian physics?" The answer, as the Valdorian fleet was learning, was not well at all. The stellar dominance shuddered as another system failed. High Admiral Kilara watched her mighty fleet falling into disarray, not through overwhelming force, but through thousands of small, unpredictable attacks that seemed to target every conceivable weakness simultaneously. "Status report," she demanded, her scales now a mottled pattern of stress and confusion. "High Admiral," Varen responded, his own scales showing similar distress. "We're detecting something new. The humans are deploying devices we can't even classify. They're using principles that contradict our understanding of physics. On Earth, in a hidden facility deep beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Maya Patel led a team of scientists who were doing the impossible. They were reverse engineering Valdorian technology in real time. But they weren't trying to copy it exactly. Instead, they were finding ways to combine it with existing human technology in ways the Valdorians had never considered. The Valdorians developed their technology in a straight line," Dr. Patel explained to the Global Science Council via quantum encrypted link. "They discovered A, which led to B, then C, and so on. But humans? We developed A, then jumped to M, went back to C, skipped to X, and found ways to make them all work together. That's our advantage." Across the globe, research teams were discovering that human technology, developed through centuries of messy, nonlinear progress, could interact with Valdorian systems in ways that the aliens' own scientists had never imagined possible. Earth's quantum computers, built differently from their Valdorian counterparts, could exploit weaknesses in alien software that shouldn't have existed. "They're adapting," Kilara observed with growing dread. "Not just fighting back, they're learning, evolving their tactics with every exchange." Her words were punctuated by the loss of another destroyer, its systems completely overwhelmed by what appeared to be a primitive computer virus combined with quantum-entangled particles in a configuration that defied Valdorian physics. In the Luna Base Command Center, General Chen received a priority message from the Global Science Council. The reverse engineering teams have cracked their shield harmonics, her communications officer reported. Dr. Patel says we can neutralize their defensive systems using a combination of 19th century radio waves and quantum field manipulation. Chen allowed herself a brief smile. Broadcast this to all Earth forces. Operation Babel is now in effect. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every radio telescope on Earth, every amateur radio operator, every piece of communications equipment capable of broadcasting, all began transmitting specific frequencies. Alone, each signal was harmless. Combined with the quantum field manipulators that humans had secretly developed, they created a cascade effect that the Valdorian shields couldn't process. High Admiral. Varen's scales had shifted to pure white, the color of absolute shock in their species. Their attacks, they're using our own shield frequencies against us, but the modulation is impossible. They're combining technologies that should be incompatible. Kilara watched as her fleet's defenses began to fail systematically. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were deconstructing Valdorian technology and rebuilding it in ways that its creators had never imagined possible. They were taking apart the very foundations of Valdorian military superiority and reassembling them into weapons. "Send the distress signal," she ordered, her scales shifting to the deep blue of resignation. The Empire must be warned. These humans, they're not just dangerous because of their weapons. They're dangerous because they think differently than any species we've ever encountered. But even as she gave the order, human quantum disruption fields were already preventing her ships from establishing stable communications with the Empire. The humans had anticipated this move too, using their own quantum communication network to isolate the Valdorian fleet from any outside help. In a secure facility under the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Patel and her team made another breakthrough. "We've decoded their neural interface protocols," she announced to the Global Science Council. "Their entire command and control system is based on assumptions about consciousness that don't apply to human brains. We can use that." The next wave of human attacks targeted the Valdorian fleet's neural networks directly. While Valdorian minds processed information in precise, predictable patterns, human consciousness was chaotic, creative, and inherently unpredictable. By introducing human thought patterns into the Valdorian neural interfaces, Earth's forces created cognitive dissonance that their enemies couldn't resolve. They don't just adapt, Kilara realized, watching her fleet's coordination dissolve into chaos. They force everything around them to adapt to them. Their technology, their tactics, even the laws of physics. They bend everything to work the way they think it should. The Valdorian Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds by being technologically superior. But for the first time, they faced an enemy that didn't play by the rules of technological progression. Humanity had turned their very superiority into a weakness, using it against them in ways that no species had ever attempted before. And they were only getting started. Dr. Maya Patel stood before the holographic display in the Global Defense Summit, where scientists from every nation had gathered virtually to share their findings. The Valdorian fleet hung in orbit, diminished but still dangerous, their remaining ships trying to adapt to humanity's unconventional warfare. "The Valdorians see technology as a ladder," she explained, gesturing to a visualization of alien tech development, each step leading to the next in a predictable sequence. "But humanity, we built a web." The display shifted to show the interconnected network of human innovations, crossing paths and doubling back on themselves in beautiful chaos. In orbit, High Admiral Kilara was reaching a similar conclusion. "Their development makes no sense," she transmitted to her remaining command staff. "They discovered quantum mechanics before fully understanding classical physics. They reached space using chemical rockets while simultaneously developing sophisticated AI. Every standard model of technological progression says this should be impossible." But impossible had become humanity's specialty. In research centers across the globe, scientists were discovering that Valdorian technology, for all its advancement, was surprisingly inflexible. It was perfect for its intended purpose, but struggled to adapt to unexpected situations. Human technology, born from centuries of working around limitations and finding unconventional solutions, proved remarkably adaptable. The key isn't just the technology, General Chen observed during a global strategy meeting. It's how we think about using it. The Valdorians built their empire on predictability and control. We built our civilization on adapting to chaos. This fundamental difference was becoming increasingly apparent as the conflict evolved. When the Valdorians deployed automated repair systems to counter human attacks, they found these systems confused by human battle damage that didn't follow logical patterns. Earth's forces weren't just trying to destroy Valdorian ships. They were damaging them in ways that made repair attempts create new vulnerabilities. In her Himalayan lab, Dr. Patel made another breakthrough. Their neural interfaces are based on pure logic, she announced to the Science Council. They literally can't process human emotional responses. We can use that. The next phase of Earth's defense took an unexpected turn. Instead of just attacking Valdorian systems with technology, humans began introducing emotional elements into their warfare. Art, music, and poetry were encoded into attack algorithms. Battle strategies incorporated psychological elements that the Valdorians' logical minds struggled to comprehend. They're transmitting stories, Varen reported, his scales shifting in confusion. The attack patterns contain narrative structures. Our systems can't predict them because they follow emotional logic rather than tactical doctrine. Kilara watched as her fleet's combat AI struggled to counter attacks that incorporated human creative expression. The Valdorians had perfected the science of warfare, but humans had turned it into an art form. Their attacks carried elements of human culture, emotion, and creativity that made them inherently unpredictable to purely logical systems. On Earth, the collaboration between nations reached new heights. Traditional rivals shared secrets and resources. Scientists who had once competed now worked together, combining their knowledge in ways that created exponential progress. The very diversity that the Valdorians had seen as a weakness proved to be humanity's greatest strength. Each human approaches problems differently, Dr. Patel explained to her global colleagues. Where the Valdorians seek the single best solution, we create thousands of possible solutions and let them evolve together. This approach led to technological breakthroughs that the Valdorians, with their linear thinking, had never considered possible. The turning point came when humanity deployed what they called the Chaos Network, a defense system that deliberately incorporated randomness, emotion, and human intuition into its core programming. While Valdorian systems tried to impose order on the battlefield, the Chaos Network embraced and weaponized uncertainty itself. "You don't understand us," General Chen transmitted to the Valdorian fleet. "You see our emotions as a weakness, our diversity as a flaw, our unpredictability as a disadvantage. But they're the source of our strength. We don't just accept chaos. We thrive in it." As if to prove her point, Earth's forces launched their most audacious attack yet. Every piece of human technology, from the most primitive radio to the most advanced quantum computer, began operating in concert. But instead of following a central plan, each system was allowed to adapt and respond independently, creating a swarm effect that overwhelmed Valdorian tactical doctrine. Their entire civilization should have collapsed under its own contradictions, Kilara observed, watching her fleet's orderly formations break apart under the onslaught. Instead, they turned those contradictions into weapons. They don't just accept different approaches, they find ways to make them work together. In the heart of Luna Base, General Chen watched the battle unfold with quiet satisfaction. The Valdorians had expected to find a primitive species struggling to reach the stars. Instead, they found humanity at its finest, creative, adaptable, and absolutely unwilling to submit to anyone's idea of how they should develop. The war wasn't over, but its outcome was becoming clear. The Valdorians had perfected a single path to the stars. Humanity had found 1,000 paths, and was still discovering more. High Admiral Kilara stood on the bridge of her failing flagship, watching as humanity's chaos network dismantled her fleet's remaining defenses. Her scales had settled into a deep shade of violet, a color her species reserved for moments of profound realization. We never understood them at all, she transmitted to her remaining ships. We thought their contradictions were weaknesses, their emotional decisions, their competing systems, their illogical attachments to outdated technologies. We were wrong. Those weren't flaws in their development. They were deliberate choices. In the Luna Base Command Center, General Chen received a surprising transmission from Dr. Patel. General, we've fully decoded their neural patterns, but there's something else you need to see. Their biology, their technology, their entire civilization. It's all built on the principle of perfect order. Our chaos isn't just confusing them. It's showing them a completely different way of existing. Chen studied the data with growing understanding. The Valdorians hadn't developed their rigid, hierarchical society by chance. Their biology predisposed them to seek perfect order, to advance along predictable paths. Humanity's demonstration of successful chaos wasn't just defeating them, it was transforming their understanding of what was possible. High Admiral, Chen transmitted to the Valdorian flagship. We're sending you data about how we develop our technology, not to help you fight us, but to help you understand why you can't beat us the way you've beaten others. We want you to see what you've been missing. Kilara received the transmission with her species' equivalent of skepticism, but as she processed the information, her scales began shifting through colors that her crew had never seen before. The humans weren't just showing her their technological development. They were showing her their failures, their mistakes, their abandoned projects and recovered disasters. All the messy, chaotic steps that had led them to develop in ways the Valdorians had never imagined possible. You learn from failure, she transmitted back, her voice carrying a new tone of understanding. Not just to avoid it, but to find unexpected opportunities within it. Every setback becomes a potential advantage. Every mistake opens new paths of development. Exactly, Chen replied. We don't advance in spite of our chaos. We advance because of it. Our emotions don't cloud our judgment. They give us insights that pure logic could never achieve. Our competing systems don't hold us back. They create redundancy and resilience that no single perfect system could match. In her Himalayan laboratory, Dr. Patel watched as Valdorian ships began powering down their weapons. Not in surrender, but in something far more profound, recognition. They're beginning to understand, she told her global colleagues. Their perfect order gave them incredible advancement along a single path. Our chaos gave us slower but broader development across countless paths. We're not just defeating their technology. We're showing them there's another way to evolve. The remaining Valdorian ships had formed a circular pattern around the stellar dominance. Not a combat formation, but a listening posture. For the first time in their species' history, the Valdorians were encountering something their orderly minds had never conceived. A civilization that had turned disorder itself into a source of strength. We offer you a choice, General Chen transmitted to the fleet. You can retreat and tell your empire that you found something new among the stars. Not just another species to conquer, but a fundamental truth you never considered. Order isn't the only path to advancement. Sometimes, the best way forward is to embrace the chaos. Kilara's response came after a long pause, her scales now showing colors that marked the deepest kind of paradigm shift in her species. We came to teach you how to advance properly, she transmitted. Instead, you have taught us that there is no single proper way to advance. Your chaos, your emotions, your impossible combinations of technologies, they don't just work differently from our methods. They work in ways we never imagined possible. The Valdorian fleet began to withdraw, but not in defeat. They retreated with something far more valuable than conquest. Understanding. They had come seeking to impose their order on humanity. They left having learned that their perfect order was just one way among many to reach the stars. In the aftermath, as Earth's combined forces stood down from full alert, General Chen met with the Global Leadership Council. They'll be back, She noted, "Not to conquer us, but to learn from us. And maybe we'll learn from them too. After all, that's what humanity does best. We take different ideas, different approaches, even different species' ways of thinking, and we find ways to make them work together." Dr. Patil added her own observation from the Science Council. "The Valdorians perfected a single path to the stars. We showed them that there are infinite paths, each with its own advantages. Our greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to see possibilities where others see only chaos." As the Valdorian fleet disappeared into hyperspace, they carried with them not just the memory of defeat, but the seeds of transformation. They had come seeking to impose order on humanity. They left understanding that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't perfect order or pure chaos, but the wisdom to know when to use each. Humanity had defended itself not just with weapons and technology, but with its fundamental nature, the beautiful chaos of human creativity, the strength found in diversity, and the power of embracing all paths to advancement. It was a lesson that would reshape not just Earth's future, but the future of countless civilizations across the stars.